Today, I'm excited to explore the mysterious and fantasy-laden South Korean movie Vanishing Time, A Boy Who Returned. Be prepared, as we'll dive into key plot twists and spoilers, so watch out if you'd like to avoid them. Our story opens with a young girl named Soo-rin sitting across from a psychiatrist, visibly anxious as the doctor adjusts a camera for the interview. The doctor gently encourages her to recount her story from the beginning, a story that has both puzzled and frightened everyone around her. Taking a breath, Surin starts her tale. Surin explains that her life took a drastic turn after her mother's death. Some years ago, her mother married Duk-hyun, a man who later moved them to an isolated island named Wano, where he works as a construction supervisor. Following her mother's death, Surin felt utterly alone. She was distant, barely speaking, and felt no connection to her stepfather, who was preoccupied with his job. Now living on a remote island with few friends and family, Surin's life had become bleak and lonely. Despite starting a new school where she could have made friends, she withdrew, preferring isolation. One night, she distracted herself by reading blog comments on her phone about wormholes and theories of escaping reality. Surin had been obsessed with the idea of supernatural realms and alternate dimensions since her mother's death, almost as a way to escape her grief. This fascination led her to post theories and interact with strangers online. Unfortunately, her fascination drew unwanted attention from her classmates, who mocked her after finding her blog posts left open on a school computer. Among these classmates, one boy stood out, Sung-min, a boy who, like Surin, didn't quite fit in. One day, Sung-min introduced himself to Surin, trying to befriend her despite her cool attitude. Surin was initially uninterested but found herself drawn to his easygoing nature. Over time, they developed a friendship, bonding over their shared curiosity about the supernatural. To keep their secrets, they even created a unique coded alphabet to write notes to each other in Surin's diary. They spent their afternoons exploring the island, looking for evidence of ghosts or otherworldly occurrences. During one of these explorations, Sung-min led Surin to an abandoned wooden house hidden in the forest. The pair spent hours talking, sharing fears, and carving symbols on wax blocks they found there. Surin began to realize that she cared deeply for Sung-min, and one day, she impulsively kissed him, leaving him flustered but happy. One afternoon, Sung-min and his friends planned to sneak into the restricted construction site to watch the nighttime explosions. Surin hesitated but joined them, and together, they snuck through the woods to avoid being seen by the adults. However, when they arrived, there were no explosions, disappointing the group. Just as they were about to leave, they noticed a small cave nearby. They decided to explore it, excited for a new adventure. Inside the cave, they discovered a mysterious, glowing substance submerged in water. Surin thought it looked like a meteorite, while the boys joked that it might belong to a time goblin from a story Sung-min had heard from his grandfather. The story claimed that those who encountered the goblin would return to the world much older. The kids brushed it off, laughing at the idea. While Surin searched for a hairpin, a precious memento from her mother that she'd lost, the boys examined the glowing object more closely. They noticed it resembled an egg and began debating what it could be. Just as Surin returned, Sung-min picked it up, breaking it open. To everyone's surprise, it seemed empty, leaving the group disappointed. Suddenly, Surin felt disoriented. She stumbled out of the cave, only to discover her friends had vanished without a trace. She searched for them frantically, but as night fell, she was forced to spend the night alone in the forest. The next morning, a search party found Surin unconscious and took her to the hospital. When questioned, she tried to explain what happened in the cave and about the glowing egg. But her story was too bizarre, and no one believed her, not even when she led them back to the cave, which seemed to have disappeared overnight. Days later, authorities found the body of one of the boys, Jae-wook, buried on a beach 20 kilometers away. The autopsy revealed he had died from an asthma attack, turning the case into a suspected kidnapping. Weeks passed, and with Sung-min still missing, Soo-rin was once again isolated and distraught, returning to her withdrawn self. One evening, while alone at home, Surin noticed a figure moving in the woods. She hurried after him, only to stop in her tracks when the man turned around, claiming to be Sung-min. In shock, she fled, unsure of what to believe. But later, she found Sung-min's notes in their secret code, recounting everything that happened after she'd left the cave. She learned how time had frozen for everyone except the boys, and how they'd spent months exploring a paused world. In the beginning, Sung-min, Tae-shik, and Jae-wook were thrilled with their freedom, eating whatever they liked, playing all day, and venturing anywhere without restrictions. But after a while, they grew restless and frustrated by the isolation. They even tried to leave the island, but the ocean was frozen, trapping them there. Eventually, months turned to years, and they had grown into young adults, stuck in a world where time had stopped. Over time, desperation took its toll, especially on Jae-wook, whose asthma worsened without functioning medicine. One night, he passed away, leaving the others devastated. The surviving boys buried him on the beach, which is how his body was eventually discovered. Sung-min and Tae-shik continued to survive, holding on to the hope that time would resume when they turned 20. But as their birthdays came and went, the world remained frozen, and the crushing reality of their endless isolation set in. Eventually, Sung-min couldn't bear the loneliness any longer and broke down, screaming for everything to end. Witnessing his breakdown, Tae-shik gave up hope and ended his life by jumping from a cliff. Moments later, the world resumed. Sung-min, now an adult, was left with the trauma of years spent alone and the loss of his friends. Back in the present, Soo-rin and Sung-min try to figure out what to do next. Surin suggests using the other glowing egg to age and prove Sung-min's innocence, but he refuses, unwilling to let her suffer like he did. Their plan is interrupted when police begin hunting Sung-min, who is now considered a prime suspect in the boys' disappearances. After a tense confrontation, the police corner them at the edge of a cliff. Sung-min, in a last-ditch effort to save Soo-rin and the detective, breaks the egg, stopping time once more to ensure their safety. When Soo-rin regains consciousness, she's back on the beach with the detective, now understanding the sacrifice Sung-min has made, possibly aging him yet another decade. After recounting her story to the psychiatrist, Soo-rin is left in a bittersweet state. While she may never fully prove Sung-min's innocence, she gains some solace and closure. Months later, as she prepares to leave for high school in a new city, she spots a familiar figure. Rushing forward, she sees Sung-min one last time, and their story ends as they exchange a silent, knowing glance. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel grow.